Right, okay, so it's been about an hour, so we've let this all dry down. And unfortunately, you can probably see we've got a little bit of a gap occurred. Now, again, I'm not saying where this is. It's probably where I've cut it out here and all the rest of it. But it is tiny. The rest of it is absolutely fine. So, to be honest, you could come in with filler. You could do all the bits and pieces. But one of the ones I like to use is the old homebrew sprue goo, as it used to be called back in the day. So this is basically just melted down styrene sheet. The only thing I will say, I do use pure styrene sheet. So this isn't bits of sprue cut off and put in there. I tend to find it shrinks a lot. And then I just mix it simply with a little bit of Tamiya extra thin, and it makes this. And to be honest, I have a couple of bottles of it. So we've got like a thick version, we've got a nice thin one. The great thing about it, not only does it act as a filler, it's also a glue. So this will weld it up completely and structurally. Okay, so what we have is, we'll just grab this bit here. Okay, so this is our little tiny joiners we got just down in here that needs to be filled. All right, so all we're going to do is we grab a little bit of our sprue goo, and again, this is quite thin, so it's not going to need much at all. And all we do is capillary action, just touch and flow. Okay, so we're just going to come along and we're going to work our way down. So this will literally be minimal cleaner, minimal everything to take care of this. So it will self-level, and if you do this correctly and you don't get a little bit overzealous like I've done just there, you'll find you won't even have to seal itself up, and it will level off really, really nicely, so you haven't got to do any sort of sanding or aggressive sanding and filling. Okay, but again, the great thing about this one is not only does it act as a fantastic filler, as it did back in the day, I'm sure a lot of people have seen this technique before, but also it's structural because it is acting like a glue. So a lot of fillers, perhaps they can be a little bit of a weak point and they can crack and various things, but this one should be absolutely fine. And again, it said before, it will self-level and it will sort itself out. So if you can be very, very accurate with it, and to be honest, in here I'm using a Tamiya extra thin bottle with the extra thin little parts on here, and it is great. So we've got this little seam just down in here as well. So we'll take care of this whilst we're here. And we got this little gap just down the back here, and again, just working our way through like this. It should work really, really well. Okay, so, and again, works well with anything like this. So we're just going to come along, and again, I think we're pretty much there now. I'm just going to put a little bit at the front here as well, just to make sure we're covering all the areas. And again, this is one of these things where if it's a thin little coat like this, it won't take very long to dry at all. But there we go, that takes care of now any gaps we might have got. Okay, might need a little bit of a scrape clean or something under there, but honestly, I don't think it's going to be so much of a problem. The great thing is now we can flip this over, and then we can install this guy down in here. So again, you can probably see how if we put this end in, this end is off angle, but what it will do, this is the structural box, if you like. This is what all kits should have. So it actually puts the wings to exactly the right angles and everything else. So it may need to be pulling up and done. So what we'll do with this, we'll literally come in, we'll glue one edge in, okay, as you can probably see, there's quite a difference in this, all right, and then what we'll do is once this side's glued in and done properly, then we'll do the other side so it all pulls it up and squares it up and everything else like that. To be honest, it's not that far out, it's pretty much there. I think my problem is this little groove we put in for the front there isn't quite big enough. So what we'll do is we'll come back with our little carving tool, and we're just going to make this bigger. This isn't structural in any way, so you can literally go too big, or you can just literally put a great big area in this as well, just so it's all totally clear. Okay, so again, we're just going to make sure we have got it, but I'm thinking that's what the problem is. It's literally just too small, and it is. All right, so what we can do is we can just literally carve some of this away. So just need a little bit more down in there and a little bit in here. Now, does this mean that the kit's wrong? I don't know, I've gone past it now, so I can't tell exactly what it is. Okay, so again, we'll open that up a little bit more, pop this in the front. And again, don't forget, this is all about modelling. So there we go, we are clear now. You can probably just see down in that front how it was literally just not quite big enough, and that was what our problem was. So now when we seat this in, it should be absolutely fine, and it is, all right. But what we'll do is we will take our time with it. So remember, if you're doing the other Bombay, you're going to be exactly the same process as we've done here, okay, right the way through. It's only if you're doing it Bombay open, then obviously you've got a different type of thing. So there we go. This one's going to be sitting down on the top. This is the one we're doing here. But if you happen to be doing the Bombay open, you're basically going to be following along the same type of thing, but you're not going to be putting in the center plate, okay? So you're going to be putting these areas and gluing them in. So they're saying about doing it one at a time, which is probably a good idea. That way, same type of thing we've got going on here. You've got it perfect alignment, so when the other side comes in, you'll be good to go on that as well, okay? So we're happy with how this is, okay? We've got this all sorted out. Okay, it's all looking good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this corner and we're going to work our way backwards. Okay, so we're just going to come in, glue. So this will be one of those ones where we'll just glue one corner like this. Okay, get one edge all in, and then we will start to go around. Okay, so we're just going to do this one down in here. Okay, that's all in there. We'll hold it just for a second, just to make sure we're all happy. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll start to work our way across. So as I said, get this side done, we'll leave it half an hour, then we'll do the other side, and we should be all good to go as we make our way through. Okay, so next up, with the actual, that all drying and going off, we can have a look down in here. So obviously if you're doing it gear up, you would have seen before where you've just got the plates which are going to fit in. But from our point of view, we've got to build the wheel wells. So obviously we've got the nose wheel well to go together, then we've got the twin obviously for the rears. So the nose wheel one is made up of these parts as you can see down in here. Okay, so starting off with obviously with the base on here, as we can see, we've got it. So if we rotate it the same way as the sort of the instructions, so literally this is going to be a case of working out the best way of putting these boxes together. Okay, so what we've got here is going to go onto one side, and again you're sort of building a box around here, so I'm thinking it's probably going to be better to start the end in. So we just pop the bottom in, and I tend to glue from the outside and just let the capillary action run around all down in there like that. And then, as I say, you can then start the process of bringing all these together. Okay, so we've got these parts down in here. So obviously we got this one in here, which is D36. Now the instruction's a little bit odd because it's showing you putting it together sort of upside down. Okay, so from our point of view then, we've got this one is going to fit just down in here on the inside. Okay, so this has got the sort of dog leg on it, okay, which is D31, and again we just do capillary action from the outside. Okay, a little bit of a nudge down, and then we've got the other side, we've got the same type of thing going to be fitting down in here, so we just push him along and in, and again, testament to the kit, it literally holds its own joins. Okay, so both of those now, just before it all goes off, you can just literally just come along with the M1 and pop that in. Again, very nice, very simple, but incredibly effective. And I think, to be honest, this is how this is all going at the moment. It's one of these kits that is a joy to build because it's just falling together. We often talk about, or I talk about, obviously what we call add glue shake in box kits, so Tamiya, things like that, where the engineering is so precise that it literally doesn't need anything else. It just needs you to pop it together and away you go. One of the secrets to putting together a kit like this that just goes together is making sure you clean up all the little sprue attachment points. You will find if you leave those out, and even if you've got off with a good pair of quality cutters, that 1/4 mil, two sides of it, you're talking 1/2 mil then. Okay, and then the things don't go together and they don't fit. Then you come into placing wheel wells into areas and things like that. You will notice they're just not sitting correctly. Then that can affect perhaps a wing top going on. So that tiny little bit you missed could be a knock-on effect that goes right the way through. And before you know it, you come into putting like fuselage halves together, wings, tops and bottom, and there's a big gap. And you're thinking, oh, it's the kit, it's all this, that and the other, and it's very easy to blame the kit. But actually, it was because you didn't remove or do the proper cleanup to all your parts. So what I tend to do is I cut off all the parts like you can see down in here, and then we just go around with, you know, obviously I've got one of our skinny sticks here. Being dual sided, it's great because you can just sand it off and then you just pop along and then clean it up on the other side. It gives a perfect join every time, so it's not a problem at all. But again, if you do miss these things, it can be a big thing later on, and then you don't even remember not doing that bit of cleanup, and it won't fit. And it's to say, very, very easy to blame everything else. Okay, so down in here we got the next part. Okay, so this is one of the main gear ones, so we're just gonna pop this down in the end like this. Then you've actually got one of these actuators. Okay, so this is going to be this is number 34. They are specific to each side, but they just fit in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pop a little bit of glue just down in there and in here and at the top, just to get this one in. Then we're going to give it a nudge, a little bit of a push, and that's braced all that in. Okay, and then we're just going to work our way down then the area. So same thing again, we're just going to come into the other side, and then again, as we did the others, we'll just glue from the outside. Okay, let the capillary action just down in the corner. Okay, and then this one is going to sweep around the front. Okay, so this one is just going to come in, and again, if you just do it like this, you can then just push it in and then down, and it goes in. Again, putting them in the right order helps because it saves you having to sort of bend them around and get them all in. Okay, and then we just do the end, and there is our main gear. Well done, just like that. Nice level of detail right the way inside. And again, we can put these in and get these all situated in here. So first up, we've got the nose bay, and I say loads of detail in this, which is really nice. You can see how we've got the main spar in there, and again, you're looking to make sure you've got no gaps around anywhere. This should be completely flush all the way through here. That way you know you've got the perfect profile on the underside. That glue is all drying. We're basically dry now. We can go back and we'll sand it up, but for the moment we will get these Wheelwells installed. Again, they only go one way because you've got those little cutouts. So he just comes in on this side, and again we can just simply pop in with a little bit of glue, and again we'll just let the capillary action do all the work, and it can zip round gluing all these up. Okay, once it's in there, I like to give it a bit of a nudge just to make sure it's firmly seated. And then again, afterwards, once it's in there, on Wheelwells especially, I like to re-glue it all just to make sure it's all in there properly. But there we go, that's those ones situated in there just like that. And then this guy down in here, you've got the situations with the boxes go to the rear. Okay, so the feet to the front, box to the rear. I don't know if this has got an option that you could possibly get wrong. Probably not, because look at that, it fits in there absolutely fantastic. So that little nick out the front goes out of this area just down in here, so it just fits in there perfect like that. Again, really, really nice, very straightforward. I'd say one of these things with this kit that we're sort of picking up on is it's really well thought out. It's big, it's clunky, but it's a big kit, and what's really nice is these bigger parts that are going in just like this. The great thing about it is that it builds quite quick. It goes together. These are big parts, big chunky parts on a big chunky aircraft. Okay, so we just hold that into position just like that, and then over on here we can see we've got main gear wells and the rears. Because of the way they are, if you wanted to, and hyper detail and everything else like that, you could probably go in here and paint them up beforehand, situate them in, and then mask them up. Okay, my point of view, we're doing this bit of a speed build if you like, so what we're going to do is put all of it together, and then down in here we will pre-do this all in white, or the actual bay colours, get in there, spray it all amongst it, we'll give it dry brushing, we'll give it weathering washes, the usual bits and pieces in there, then we'll mask it over, finish it off, and then we can paint the entire underside, and then unmask it, and then little bits of touch up, and we're good to go. But again, if you did want to add more detail to this one, so perhaps going in with some scratch building, lead wire, you know, and all things like that down in there to do extra hoses, you could do them as a separate. It'd probably be easier than trying to see around in here and all the rest of it. But generally it's all in there, very, very nicely done. We can see it all finished off just like that. So it's coming together very, very nicely and quite quickly. So really that takes care of your steps from 37 right the way down to 45. Okay, next up for us, we're going to be working on the intakes. Okay, so we'll get all the parts cut out and cleaned up. We've got this template little business, which is a great little idea for doing your masking work and working out your angles of doing your painting and things. But basically we're going to be putting the actual intakes together. Again, if you do want to do a shortcut, you could do this business and just put in FOD covers in the bottom end of it, and you don't have to worry about it at all. Again, depending on how you want it to be suited. Then we can get those installed installed. Then again, we've got some the actual landing lights going in the underside. Then we'll be working on the top of the wing. And then we can work on these engines, and then finally we can actually get the wing halves together and make our way through. So it's really coming together very, very quickly. The cockpit area itself, as I say, it's all drying along very, very nicely. We're going to leave it a little bit longer. Again, when you're using weld action glues, don't forget you're softening the plastic as well. So consequently, if you try and sand it too early, you can literally just rip it and distort it. By sanding motions as well, you'll generate heat. That will soften the plastic. That's when you get ghost marks. So what happens is you sand it, it looks perfect, and then maybe a day or so later you get a little depression in that line. It's where the actual chemical reaction in the plastic and the molecular structure tightens up. When it tightens up, you get sink marks. Okay, so it's very similar to how filler works, but plastic can do it as well. So it's always well worth letting the glue totally go off, and then, as I say, I'll show you about scrape cleaning and polishing and all the rest of it with that one before we even put it on. So anyway, clear this away, let's get on with the intakes. Okay, so fuselage halves have now dried. We're looking very nice. We've also put in the bottom plate, okay, has gone in. And to be honest with you, small little fit issue just at the front. I think what it is, the lip from the glass interferes slightly with the actual bulkhead as it comes forward. So what I did was I just did a couple of swipes with the sanding stick, a little bit of test fit in. As you can see now, it's perfectly well in there. So what we've done, we've just did the same as we did with that Bombay area for the actual blue steel plate underneath. We've put in our little thin bit just to make sure we can seam check all of this, make sure it is all absolutely fine. But generally it's looking all very good indeed. So what we can do is pop the nose on. So refueling probe up, and again, I have to say, that is an amazing fit. It is literally perfect. So we've got no seam anywhere on that whatsoever. So what we'll do is we're just going to come along with a little bit of glue on the top and just a little bit on the bottom. Let the capillary action carry it around the rest and pop it on. Okay, a little bit of a nudge, but that's testament. That nose is perfect. No gaps at all on that anywhere. So what we can do, we just pop along now with our extra thins. Okay, and we're just going to put a generous bead all the way around, just so it can soak up, go in and grab. Okay, but that's testament. That's a beautiful, beautiful fit just on the end there. So we've got no problems with that one at all. So that's really nice. So really we can put that off to one side, let that totally dry off now, and then we can come back and do that a little bit. So next up for us is the intakes. So the intakes themselves, again, this is one of those ones where you want to think about how you're going to approach this kit. Now, from my point of view, I want to use the FOD covers. Two reasons. One is you won't have to make them seamless and all the rest of it, but also I think it will look quite cool as soon as she's sort of ready to deploy or all the rest of it. So that's what I'm sort of thinking with this one. So the way this works is you've got this guy here, which will go in the lower. Okay, so this plate fits in here and goes in. All right, so again, to be honest with you, I've had to play with this just to make sure. So I'm just going to put a drop of glue down the back so the capillary action will carry round, and then also we can just center all of that up in there, and then we're just going to come along with a little bit of glue just down here at the bottom, let the sort of capillary action carry it around that bottom seam. So you've got it in there like that. So it looks pretty darn good all the way through. Now, again, this is where you can make your choices. You can paint this as two halves and then pop it together. The kit itself does talk about down in here about using a mask section so you can know exactly how far this goes back. Okay, but I have got a plan because the intakes follow that same line, because I think that's how they paint them in real life. They have the intake covers in there and then they'll spray it up to them. Okay, and then we take the in covers out. That's how you get the nice line. That's what I'm going to go with as well. So I've done a little bit of playing. Okay, so what I've done is I've glued these two halves together already, and you can see it's all in here. And actually, it's not too bad. It's not seamless by a long way, but it's getting close. So again, you could go in there. We could use our glue we're using. You could go in there with lacquer-based thinners, which is my normal way of doing it, and make them seamless and all the rest of it. Or you can do what we're going to do is we'll paint all of that white down in there anyway, and then we'll grab our intake cover, if I remember which one is which, I've got to think, because there is a left and right to these. And then what you can do is you can actually come along and pop these in there just like that. I think that's the other one actually, so let's take that one out. I think it must be this one. Okay, so it will go in here. Yeah, this is definitely the one. Okay, So you need to put that bottom end in first, and then you can just pop it in like that. And then what we can do is we can paint all of that up with the camo pattern. So obviously on the bottom side, it'll be from the top side looking in, so it'll be the camo. From the underside, it'll be the white. We can easily put a bit of tape in there both sides. And then once you're done, you can then literally simply just come along, push this down and then flick it out. And then that way you've got it all pre-done in there. So although it's a nice touch that they give you a mask for it and putting it in and all the rest of it, as always, do it the quickest and easiest way you can. All right, so that's what I'm going to do with it. That way we have got the option to do both. Now that's dried in there like that, you'll find that this little guy will simply slip right over the top, like so. Okay, making sure it's all in and it's all nice. So if we've got that bottom bit in there, it goes in. So make sure that bottom one is in there. Then you will notice this is actually a very nice fit. Again, good tolerances on this kit that have been all the way through. So kudos to the design team on this, because it's going together really very, very well. So that's down in there. Then what we'll do, we'll just work our way in. And again, what you can use is a long brush for doing these types of jobs, which I'll show you in a second. So again, we're using the quick set glue purely for speed, to be honest, on this build. But again, the great thing is you can just hold it for a second and then it will go. Okay, and then the same as this little guy in here, we can just come along in here, a little bit of glue, and it's all in there. And actually it's not looking too bad at all. What we can do is take a bit of the normal glue and a long brush. I found a clean brush, might be handy. Okay, so you can actually take, I can see it. Okay, grab your glue and then just come along with a normal brush and just paint the insides of these intakes all up. And whilst this won't make them seamless, it will make them nice. Okay, so you can get away with a lot with this type of brushing in there. Okay, so that will seam up. Then what you can do, if you want to, you can actually use something like this. Okay, so what we got down here is Tamiya's white top glue. And if I do it into this one over here, this is the thicker stuff. So I wouldn't use this brush because it's way too much and it's going to flood. But again, if you use the other brush here, we can just paint this on and this will help seal it up. And again, I'm not saying this is going to make them seamless, but it'd be probably perfect for what we need. Okay, because again, it's a thicker glue, but it will self-level and sort itself out. And by the time I think this has got a coat of paint on it and all the rest of it, we should be pretty much where we want to be. Okay. So again, go a little bit over of what we want. Okay. And then obviously what you're going to do is just let the glue naturally go to the low points. And because we've done both sides of it, you need that to work. So hopefully you can see in there how it's working. So we've got no seams. You can see it in there, how it's filling in. And it takes care of it like that. It's just a really quick and easy way. But what you want to do, hold it this way, talk for a few minutes like we are, turn it over, because otherwise it will literally run around the edges and it will pull and everything else like that. That's not what we want. So you want to be tipping back and coming forth, and literally just for sort of 5 minutes, so that glue's got enough of a bite where it's going to stay in place. Because really we don't want it running off and all the rest of it. Okay, but that's a really effective, you can probably see it now, it's starting to dry down in there, a very effective way of making seamless intakes quite quickly. Now that only works if they're pretty good join. You can see they're pretty good in there. And again, we'll come back and have a look before it totally dries to see how good they are. But again, keep tipping left and right and all the rest of it. Once that's dry, what we'll do is we'll come in with some white paint, we'll blow it down those intakes, and we'll probably use it neat. I'll show you how to do it because it's quite complex, okay? So you don't get any runs and stuff like that. And then what we can actually do is these first stage compressor, we'll be able to put those in, so we'll paint them up as well, probably in a gunmetal and everything else. And when we do look down here, we'll get that nice contrast of having the white and obviously the gunmetal colour down in there. Then we'll have that camo, because what we'll do is we won't even bother painting these up yet, we'll just put them in as neat plastic, okay? When it's done to paintwork, we'll pop these out, paint these red, and that way you can have them in there or not, depending which way you want it. Okay, so that's actually looking all pretty darn good in there. So what I'm going to do, exactly the same to the other one. We get this one done now. Now it's dry, we can come in and give this one a coat, and then hopefully we'll have a look, see what we got. We'll get these painted, and then we get them installed into the actual wing section itself once it's done and it's in the wing section. And then it's just going to be a case of coming along then, and then we can think about which way these go. I think it's this way. So we can think about, there we go, installing these down into there, getting the tops of the wings on, and then the front mounted up, and we've got something looking like a Vulcan. Okay, so to be honest, it's been a few days now since I've actually been working on this one. So just having generally a look around with it, we're really happy of how we're going so far. So we just need to do this little bit of cleanup under here. So you can probably see the shininess there. What I tend to use for that is good old fashioned Tamiya's white top. Now this is technically a resin type glue. It's not like a weld action glue that you might be used to if you're using like extra thin and things like that. This is more like the old stuff. So if you remember the old first liquid glues, it's like that. So what this means is it's got a bit of a filler capability. It will glue and you can use it as a little bit of a filler. So what I did was, around here, as you can see, we've literally, you catch it in the light, just put in a little bit all the way around it, just like that. So now we can do a little bit of cleanup, and for that, a little bit different, okay, we're going to use a scraper. All right, so you've got multiple types of scrapers out there, got various ones we can use. But the great thing about using this is that you can very lightly just take away any height differences. So you can see down in the front here, if we just have a look on the close up, that we got a small little height variation. It wasn't my finest hour, so I didn't keep an eye on this seam. The rest of them, to be honest, they're all pretty darn good, but the tail ones and the front ones, they're not perfect. So what we can do is we can just slightly improve it by giving it a little bit of a scrape. Okay, so all we're going to do is just take a little bit of height out of one side. So we're not trying to curve it down, we're literally just going to reduce the height, which will, from an eye point of view, reduce the look of it. And the great thing about using a scraper is you can see exactly what you're doing as you're taking that height down. So I'm looking across this and I can see the shininess. I know chances of you seeing it at the same time as me are very, very remote, but you can probably see on this side already, the high side, we've taken it off. So we just want it all to be the same. So we're just going to go down and we can scrape down just like this. Now a little way of doing this, and it's a little trick, is to use something like a pen. So to be honest, we've got like a Posca pen here, and I'll just do these areas. So what you can do, these are acrylic, you can just literally pop around your seams like this, and you can then do them to see if you got it. But you could use a Sharpie, but if you're using a Sharpie, make sure you actually take away all of it before you come to paint, because when you come to paint it can be a little bit of a pain. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to basically draw in, if I like, for want of a better word, all of these. Now Posca pens are acrylic, so the great thing is that it should be pretty much, so we're just going to pop this in all the panel lines around here, and then that way we draw up that panel line. That's a good one. We can see exactly what we've got all the way. There you go, not my finest hour of drawing, but it's a very good panel line. Okay, so we can just come along, and this way it just gives you at home an easier way to see. Okay, so this is the entire area we're going to be looking at. Okay, so this doesn't take long to dry at all. Okay, and then literally you can probably see it drying. It will dry back to being a dull surface. Okay, but again, you'll get the idea of this. So what you can do is these ones down in here, you can see it's actually not too bad at all. The panel line is pretty much exactly what we want, and up here it is just this front and back areas. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to grab an airbrush. This is just air. We're just going to dry these back. So we're just speeding up the drying time of the pens. Otherwise what will happen is it will just come out wet. Okay, so we just whip around them. And again, don't think it has to be a pen or a Sharpie. You could just use some black acrylic paint and away you go. So now we can see this a little bit better. Okay, so what you can actually do is come along with a sander Okay, so we just got a normal sander here, and we're just going to give it a rub, and now we can see what the joins are like. And as you can see, it's not too bad in here at all. It's just a little one. All right, so what we're going to do is we are literally just going to, using our scraper, we're just going to scrape clean the height difference, as you said, out of this. And what we're looking for is a perfect panel line. Okay, so this is the point. So this corner, got a little bit just down in this corner. So again, and we're doing this really, really lightly. We're not pushing down or anything heavy-handed on this. We are literally just trying to come in and just literally scrape clean the height difference. And there is a little bit of a height difference across this area here. We've got this detail, so we want to be a little bit careful with that. All right, so again, and all we're doing is very gently taking out some height difference, and you can see that line retracting now. That means we're pretty much exactly where we want to be. Okay, and then again, we're just going to pop down the inside of this, and we can see exactly what we've got. So we're just going to continue this. Okay, so that now is exactly where we want to be. So we just give that a sand. Just down there. Okay, and as you can see, that step has now totally gone. That is totally smooth. All right, so that's exactly what we need to do everywhere. So we need to do it onto this side now, just to marry this up. And just for argument's sake, I'll just use a little skinny stick. We can see this side isn't too bad at all. So very, very lightly, we're just going to brush over here. But you can probably see this shadow area down in here. So this means this area is too high. So this entire back area is too tall. So again, we're just going to come in, little scrapes. And again, it's little scrapes. You don't want to be hammering through this, because you're literally just trying to take out a little bit of height on both sides. Okay, and that's all it literally is. That was it. Okay, so pretty darn good, all of that. And then again, come in with a sander, sand all of that out, and again, totally smooth there now. So that's actually taken care of that one. And then again for the backs, so exactly the same as we do the backs. I'll just show you this one over here. So this is your high and low side, as you can see on here. So again, scrape clean is great because you can just come along and you can do it. And then obviously if you've got curvy type scrape cleaners like this, you can work out your angles with exactly what you've got. Okay, and I will turn like this, and you can just lightly scrape clean. You can see that line. And the great thing about scrape cleaning is you don't make any collateral damage like you do with a sanding stick. If you were in here with a sanding stick now, you could make a right mess. Okay, but doing something like this is a lot neater. So again, we're just going to make sure we've got good, so it's smooth coming from the back up to the front. So we've got a nice small panel line. And again, that's literally it. So really the blackness is purely so I can see exactly what height difference we've got and how much we need to take out and things like that. So it can be a little bit tricky on the areas like here. But you think we've got big panels all here, and it's still got, the panel lines are still showing beautifully. So there we go, now we're getting that. A little bit behind. Okay, sand, so you can get a good look at it. And again, now, totally smooth, totally blended up. Okay, this top side up here. And again, it's got a small line in there just like that, so we can just take a thin sander and we'll just sand it in, because obviously there is no seam line here, and as you can see it's going now, just got the small little few dots in there. And again, just working your sander, let it do the work, don't push. And this way with the black, you can see exactly how far you've got to go. So you might think to yourself, look, I'm sounding too far here, so I need to back off and come along and perhaps come in with some filler. But most times you can just literally sand it all the way like this. Just up to that hole. Okay, and then again, right up here. And again, you won't be able to sand out the panel line, but if the panel line is all absolutely fine, then you're okay. Okay, just use the other end. And there we have it. Now, beautiful, very smooth, no join issues, nothing trouble at all. We've got the panel line as we still need it to run right the way up, and then across in here. And obviously what we can do now is in a minute we'll pop the panel line back in and just tidy up. And this other one here, this looks like a spade underneath here. We just need to tidy that up as well. But again, perfectly woven. It's a great way of blending the two heights. So if you ever get that thing where they're stepped differently, many times you think to yourself, right, well look, we need to come in with some filler. So now you're filling it, but technically you don't. You can just take down a little bit of the height. Sometimes you do need to bring it up, don't get me wrong. But many times you can just bring down the height and it just brings the two together and that blends perfectly now. And to be honest, I can't even feel that. That's gone in so well, and this one as well. So as I say, we do the same on the other side, we'll take care of that. And to be honest with you, exactly the same way as we did this nose. So this nose, we just scrape cleaned, just up the fronts, around these sides and everything else. And again, you can probably see by the black marks in here how nice it is. So we've still got these panel lines down in here, and obviously on the front around the nose as well was done exactly the same way, but how nice and cleanly it does it. So you're not making any massive damage or anything else like that, and that is the point. We've still got to do these back here, but you can see we're looking at these and this base plate going in, of how nice and clean and sharp that actually is. And that's exactly what we want. So don't think always it's a case of running in and grabbing filler. Let's get in there with a filler and fill it with filler. If you can scrape clean it, so if it's usually less than 1/4 mil and a height difference, I'll scrape clean it, absolutely, every time. And say scrape cleaning, it doesn't cause damage, you're not sanding away details that are nowhere near it. And again, you don't have to do this thing of masking it up to protect an area, because again, you've got to try and sand against that, so you're slightly off, you're still not down with it and all the rest of it. But that's great, that's turned out absolutely fantastic. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to get the other half done, just like that, get that sanded and cleaned up, and then we can think about getting the wing section together, get that over here and putting that in.